Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games on this beautiful F Around Friday. Joining me as always to close out the week, it is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck?
We're easing into the weekend.
I just saw K-Red say, "Afternoon, Mr. Hilferty." We all know Dan Hilferty's favorite day of the week is F Around Friday.
Favorite day, favorite show.
Yeah, and we are going to remember some dudes today on F Around Friday because it's our favorite thing to do is remember some dudes. Today's topic, a longtime trope of the Philadelphia Flyers, bringing guys in just a little too late. Oh, yeah, we got this dude. He's going to the Hall of Fame. How do we know that? Because he's had an entire Hall of Fame career already before the Flyers brought him in. We're going to talk about these guys today. Listen, and it's not all negative. Sometimes the stuff worked. Like 1 year of Jagr was a lot of fun.
It was a blast.
Forsberg only played 100 games, but like he's one of the all-time leaders in points a game as a Flyer.
He was great for them when he played.
Yeah, it was just like
when he could fit his foot in his skate.
He only played 100 games.
Yeah.
But so we're going to get to those guys today, but just a few things I want to tackle before we get to all of that. The first, I saw this yesterday, and honestly, I wish Hinkle was here today, but I think she's still in Montana for Pearl Jam because she's just following him around this summer, and it's pretty badass.
I respect it.
It's really cool. Charlie, were you aware that at one point, Keanu Reeves was an OHL goalie prospect?
I did not know he was a viable prospect. I knew he played hockey.
I think he'd played hockey, but
I knew that.
He was going to, at one point in the early 80s, begin a junior's career.
Okay.
And I think a knee injury kind of just put the kibosh on all that. Okay. And I think it all worked out for everyone. He's like a trillionaire.
Yeah, well, what? He got one of his starts, obviously your favorite movie ever, but he also was, like a quarterback turned surfer. Then he was in The Replacements where he was another quarterback.
He's played a quarterback twice.
Yeah.
The Replacements and Point Break, he's a quarterback. And I always loved him in The Replacements, if for no other reason than not enough left-handed quarterbacks out there.
The Replacements is an incredible bad sports movie.
Yes.
Like it is a great I love great bad movies. Yeah. That is a great bad movie.
No, like if that was a hockey movie, we would be watching it.
100%.
And next summer when we do this, we're just you and I like movies. A lot of the same sports movies. Yeah. So we're just going to watch those because they're going to be way more fun to talk about than most of the ones we've done this year.
The Replacements at no point is trying to be a great movie.
No.
It knows that it's dumb and just owns it, and I love it.
But in Philadelphia lore, there is a tie-in, the electric slide. The Eagles did the Eagles electric slid themselves to a Super Bowl in 2017, and the Replacements were always doing the electric slid.
Fair point.
Yeah, we're going to cover that next year, but I don't think he's ever played a hockey player, Keanu, but he signed a one-day contract with the Windsor Spitfire, and he's going to sign a bunch of stuff. It's going to be auctioned off for charity. Keanu Reeves has had like this second or maybe third act of his career where it's just like, he's just fucking cool. He just walks around doing cool stuff.
I'm gonna create not even an alternate universe history. I'm gonna create a fictional backstory for the character John Wick because the character John Wick is originally based out of Eastern Europe. What do they do in Eastern Europe?
Create goalies.
They play hockey.
Yeah.
They play a fair amount of hockey in Eastern Europe. I'm gonna say that before John Wick went into the life of being a hitman, I'm going to say he played some hockey.
He is. I did read because he's like Canadian, but he's from Beirut. Like that's where he was born. So he's got a crazy story. I feel like I don't know enough about Keanu Reeves, considering he's Ted Theodore Logan, one of my all-time favorite characters in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But that's just one of the dumb things I wanted to get to. It is F Around Friday. And
sure is.
It's hard to F around harder than talking about Keanu Reeves.
Agreed.
This popped up on NHL.com a couple of days ago, though, Charlie, from Adam Kimmelman, who covers the Flyers for NHL.com. And it was 3 questions facing the Philadelphia Flyers. And honestly, yeah, pretty much right. Like, realistic expectations for Michkov. We will absolutely do our prediction show some point closer to the season. But that's a big deal. Like, he's the favorite to win the Calder Trophy. What exactly does that mean? And projecting forward, is he going to be the star this team so desperately needs?
Mitchkov is the number one storyline of this season, without a doubt.
This season would be. Listen, we got into it yesterday. They're going to evaluate some guys, and there's a lot of important things. Number 3 is among them. But, like, without Mishkov, from a general viewing standpoint, the season would be pretty pointless. Yeah.
It would be.
There would be things
it would be tougher for us to sell.
After getting through last year, it's like, and all that stuff we did last year, we're going to be finding out more about again. Yeah, we need more data collected. Now, with Matvey, it's like, and the number one thing we need to know, we're going to at least get the rookie year of this year. So that's huge. How do they fix the power play? The answer to that is a lot to do with number 1.
Sure,
and
we would hope. Yeah.
With maybe the coach storyline, maybe the second most important guy we're going to find out this year, Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah.
I think those two... That's the big difference, right?
I think the Drysdale situation is separate from the power play, but I agree that most people view them as like for me, yes, if Jamie Drysdale is good on the power play, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But if Jamie Drysdale racks up a ton of points in the power play, but still absolutely gets obliterated at 5-on-5, I am not going to care that much that he's good on the power play.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But a lot of people will because they'll look at the fact that he had 50 points and be like, oh, he's great.
There's a lot that goes in, and then it's just like, oh, so he's small Rasmus. Cool. You know, because he did that in Buffalo, and it turns out he has very little offensive upside in the real world and very little application to the, like, he's okay now.
Yeah.
He's a third pair defenseman. If that's what Drysdale turns out to be, it's like, oh. Yeah. Kind of a lot of the same parallels there. But, like, just looking at the power play, what could be different from last year to this year? And the failed power plays of the last several years. It's like, okay, they have Maffei. We'll see. He's supposed to be the straw that stirs the drink there, at least in our minds. And Drysdale, a viable, perhaps, defenseman in that at the top.
You would hope so.
Like, those are the two things that could be different from last year. And, yeah, like, I bet you Tippett's better. I bet you Forster's better. Like, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you need these two guys who haven't really contributed to be the things that make it different.
Yeah, the power play is fascinating to me. We'll talk about this a ton in September and October and probably throughout the year.
December and January.
But I care less. I understand why, like, and I'm sure the way Adam Kimmelman presents it in his piece, and I'm good friends with Adam. He's a good guy. But I'm sure the way he presents it in his piece, and I understand why he would do this, is, you know, the Flyers just missed the playoffs by just a little bit. If the power play is just a little bit better, they might make the playoffs. And that's understandable. It's an NHL.com article, and you're trying to get people to click because they want to see if the Flyers are going to get better this year. I don't really care. Like, my view of why it's important to fix the power play has very little to do with the fact that I think it's important that they can squeeze another 5 or 6 standings points out of this team if they get the power play better. My view of why it's important to get the power play going is I want to see what these players, what their statistical profiles will look like and how we view them in terms of their ultimate upside. I want to know what these players look like if they're on a functional power play. Like, I will say this right now, and fine, like, you can clip this if you want. It's fine. I don't actually give a shit whether they make the playoffs or not next year. It's going to matter, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how it's so important for, you know, for experience, and the guys really want to do it, and whatever. Like, at my core, I don't care. What I care about is whether the players on the team develop and appear to have the upside to be the core of a contending team. Because whether the Flyers make the playoffs this year or not, they ain't winning shit. Maybe they win a round in a best case scenario. I want the Flyers to win a cup. So it doesn't really matter to me. It matters to me in a visceral sense because if the Flyers make the playoffs, like, our numbers will look better because people will care more, and that will be great because my job security is partially driven by whether people watch the show and listen and listen to the show and read my articles and subscribe to be diehards. And if a team's better, that's great. But I want the Flyers to win a cup. And to me, it doesn't really matter that much whether they do that by making the playoffs this year or not. But if the power play is better, there as a result, Travis Konechny's numbers would look better, which means his contract looks better. Joel Farabee's numbers will probably look better, which means he might not get traded. Morgan Frost might not get traded because his numbers will look better. Jamie Drysdale will not create the same visceral anger from sections of the fan base who are convinced he's a bust if he's racking up 20 points a year on a power play. There are a lot of things that will change in terms of our perception of the players if the power play gets better. I don't really care whether the power play getting better makes them slip into the wild card slot. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is what it might change in terms of the way we view the guys on the team.
And I think, like, as we've said so many times, most of the best teams in the league have not only a decent power play, a pretty damn good one. If these players can make up the core of that for 2 years from now when it does matter.
Exactly.
Like, that's what I care about. Like, ultimately, yeah, man, like, we'll get to number 3. If every other aspect of this team is at least decent, and it's like, yeah, man, but you got an 870 team save percentage, so you're getting the 7th pick. Like, cool.
Yeah. Works for me.
Honestly, yeah, we have some big questions in net. What else is new? But
in theory, you get one guy,
yeah,
and then
like,
you could solve them.
At least then it's like, we don't need 5 guys. Yeah, we need a number 1 goalie, sure, but it's not 5 guys, it's 1.
Right.
And that would be pretty cool if that was the biggest problem.
Yeah, agreed.
And unless something dramatic happens, they're going to need a true 1C and all that stuff. But, like, yeah, man, if they're at 22% on the power play, that's an element of the team we can at least put a check mark next to, as well as a coach that we don't need to replace.
Yeah. And, well, that to me also is the big thing with the power play, why it's not – like, it's going to be extremely frustrating if the power play is god-awful again, because we have to watch all 82 games, and it makes us want to gouge our eyes out.
It's just so bad.
But I would like to believe that if the power play is real bad again, they're going to fire the coach. And that should solve the problem. At least make it so they don't have a 12% success rate anymore.
Like, if Mishkov looks at least like a rookie of the year contender at 5-on-5, like, he's going to have somewhere between a 45 and 65 point season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jamie Drysdale's healthy and there's some offensive upside there. And the power play is still like, yeah, man, Forster, he's going to have another 20-plus goal season. We're going to see Tippett push 30 goals. Like, and then they're still at like 15%, which would be a 3% upgrade over last year. It's still real bad. It's still horrible.
Yeah.
Like, if they like are at 15% and like all these guys look good at 5-on-5, it's like, well, this just simply can't be. The other team has one less guy. Yeah. You know?
That's something that the Flyers, the brain trust, really needs to avoid. Because just in terms of the way they present it. Because I remember when Chuck Fletcher made the case when the Flyer, I think it was during his final year, and it was in, I think, November or December, and he said, well, we're the 6th most improved team in the league. But it was coming off the year when they had the 5th overall pick.
Yeah.
And understandably, fans lost their minds. Because it's like, okay, maybe that is technically true, but when you're one of the worst teams in the league, it's not acceptable to just be the 6th most. Like, they cannot try to, midway through the season, say, well, you know, our power play has improved 5 percentage points. Like, yeah, but that's not enough.
It's still below
awful
average.
That's the kind of pitfall that I really hope that Jonesy in particular can stop, like Briere from trying to sell to a fan base that understandably is going to call bullshit on it immediately.
That's one of those things when Jonesy, I ask him a question that sets him up to go, Bill, I know the market. That's why he's in this job.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe you improve 4% and no team in the league improved 4%. That puts you at 16%,
when you're
fucking
starting
horrible.
at 12.
Yeah, like
that's not enough.
16 is still horrible. No, that is like the exact sort of shooting yourself in the foot from a public relations standpoint. That's why Jonesy's here.
Yeah.
Like that, his relationships, all that stuff. But like those simple things that they did for years where it's like, guys, I'm the biggest Flyers fan. Like, I'm your biggest proponent here. I'm telling you what you're saying is dumb as shit.
Yeah.
Like what you know, it's just like they're trying to come up with something. In trying to come up with something, just frame it as it's bad and it needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Like plain and simple.
Yeah.
Do not try to sell me. Who's this working on?
Yeah.
Like I want to root for you here.
Yeah.
Don't shoot yourself. They can't possibly come up with that reasoning.
Exactly.
And I think At least
I'd like to think they have enough of an understanding that that is a bad idea.
Maybe in the marketing, public relations, at least they have the smart enough people in the organization to handle that and not make me fly off the handle when you say something dumb, that fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And number 3 here, and this is a big one, especially now with the Kolosov, up in the air. Like, if one of these guys really...
We'll see.
Who the hell knows? Like, no one's expecting him, but it's still very possible he just shows up. Like, I don't know. Like, if they can just figure out the goal, like, oh, yeah, one of these guys, like, if they just grab it and it's sustainable, like, yeah, if it's just, he's putting up crazy numbers. Like, okay, probably not. But it's like, yeah, we have a good, solid starter here. One of these guys can grab that. That's at least something a good starting point for the goaltending position.
If Sam Ersson, like my realistic hope for Sam Ersson is plays in 50 games and gives us something like a 908 save percentage, where you're like, and maybe slightly above league average.
908 to 912 is what is my
that would be great
target,
because it's like, okay, well, he's not papering over obvious flaws because he's not throwing out there a 920 and turning this team into a playoff team that shouldn't be a playoff team. But he's also showing he's a good NHL goalie and not just sucking. And then having everybody be like, okay, well, he's not an NHL goalie. Fedotov is an NHL goalie. Kolosov is in limbo. Zavragin's 2 years away at least. Bjarnason hasn't ever had a good season in the WHL.
It's just like he should be good.
Yeah, well, it's like his team stinks.
Yeah.
Which, like, true.
So does this one.
Good point.
Great. So he's solving what for
really
us?
Good point.
He solves what problem for us? Yeah, no, it's like, can the goalie tandem be successful? I have no idea. Honestly, if the answer is yes or no, there's positives on both.
Yeah.
Like, no is, all right, if everything else, like I said, with the like, if everything else is decent and the goalies suck and they end up picking in the top 10 again, great.
Yeah.
If one of these goalies locks it down and it's like, for him, if Ersson puts up a 930, it's like, yeah, man, because they gave up 35 shots a game. Of course he had a high save percentage.
Well, not necessarily.
I'm just saying.
I'm saying you can give up 35 shots a game and have a bad goalie and then be real bad.
Yeah. It's just like, mathematically here, he stopped 33 of 35. You probably don't need to give up 35 shots a game. That means the team is bad. But I don't think
a Torts team is.
They've been really good at shot suppression, especially last year.
Yeah.
But I think it's good either way. At least the answer can be a positive either way. Mm-hmm. Like that. This one is, if the power play sucks, that means like there's something wrong.
Yeah.
If Matvei Michkov doesn't live up to these expectations, like shit.
Yeah.
The goalie thing, we can spin this.
Yeah.
I can find a path for it not to kill them either way.
Agreed.
That's what I'm going to go with on that one. All right. So that was Adam Kimmelman's 3 questions, and thank you, NHL, for putting out some content for us. I love when other people write articles. It's like, oh, Charlie wasn't up till 6. Like, he puts a lot of effort into these things. So if someone else is giving us content I can talk about it, I'll gladly use it. And today it was Kimmelman. Now, before we get to the F Around Friday topic, we have just a couple of bills we got to pay here. This first one, I've been excited about this one, and I'm looking forward to it. It is the TrueMark Pickleball Tournament coming up on September 7th. It's going to be a ton of fun. Now, TrueMark Financial Care Foundation is hosting a charity pickleball event to raise money for financial education in our local communities. Listen, I tell you all the time, one of the advantages of a credit union like TrueMark Financial is that they are invested in the community, and this charity event goes directly to educating people. Like financial literacy, I don't know, especially with everything costing like $1 million now, it's probably important to know how to handle your expenses. TrueMark is not only providing that education, but creating a pretty fun event to pay for it as well. That's pretty cool. If you were at the PHLY golf outing, you might remember our friends from TrueMark. This is to benefit that charity foundation. Again, the event is September 7th. The Upper Dublin Sports Center in Ambler, PA. It's from 1:30 to 5. It's a round-robin tournament. There's going to be a certified pickleball pro on site to overview the games and kind of just explain it for anyone who's never played before. You don't need prior experience. Paddles and balls will be available to use for free. The cost to play is $50 to benefit the charity. All players will get a swag bag from TrueMark and all PHLY. If you want to get your company involved in a sponsorship and have your logo on display at the event, they're selling a variety of sponsorships from $200 all the way up to $1,000. So whatever you want to do, if you want to get your company out in front of a lot of people at this event, this is a great way to do it. And if you don't want to play pickleball, you can still support the event. There's going to be food and beer trucks on site. Percentage of the proceeds will go to the charity. There's going to be music, cornhole, and other lawn games, raffles, fun prizes, and giveaways. And if you're playing in the tournament, I'll be there. I'm going to be playing, hanging out. There's going to be a live broadcast from the event. Come spend a Saturday playing pickleball for a good cause, or just eating and drinking for a good cause while we watch the others play. And the best part, as a PHLY fan, you get a 10% discount on registration. Just register at truemark.com/PHLY pickleball. And while we're here, oh yeah, I love my Shady Rays. That's right.
Sunny weekend on the way.
It's coming. It absolutely is. And somehow I lost the read. There it is. You got to get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. I wear my Shady Rays every single day. I wear them driving into work, driving home from work. Every time I leave the house, I have sunglasses on. My number one sunglass of choice is Shady Rays. Stop. Is Shady Rays? Are Shady Rays? Is Shady Rays? It is.
Sure.
It's plural, but it's one company.
Yes.
So it's is Shady Rays.
I would say it is Shady Rays, yes.
I used to know how to write and all that stuff. Not anymore. But that doesn't matter because Shady Rays, man, all you got to do to read with them on, not that much. Crystal clear optics. It's absolutely awesome. And they have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken protection. And if you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Shady Rays, I wear them. I bet you'll love them too. All right. F Around Friday. Flyers.
Time to F Around.
Flyers post-prime acquisitions, Charlie.
Okay.
We've done a few different tropes throughout the offseason. One of our first F Around Fridays was physicality. We had all the fighters. We had all the guys who've led the league in hits or been amongst the hits leaders in the league. Last week, 2 stint Flyers. This week, another thing that the Flyers have been accused of doing for years, bringing guys in way past their prime. And the inspiration for this was Peter Forsberg last week. It was like, does he count?
Does he count
as a multi-stint Flyer? Because he was in the organization, but traded to Quebec before we ever actually used him. Well, does he count for last week? Who cares? We're on to this week.
Okay.
He is a guy they brought in past his prime. Now, he was very good here. Yeah. It's not as if this was a flat-out failure, and even the trade that they sent him out in, pretty good for us.
Pretty solid. Ended up working out quite well.
Worked out pretty well for us. But 2 seasons here, 115 points in 100 regular season games with the Flyers. Over 2 years, only played 100 regular season games. That right there kind of shows you where he was. Even that first year, super successful, played 60 games. It kind of really helped Simone Gagne reach that next level in his career. Maybe that's the biggest contribution he made beyond the Hartnell and Timonen eventually coming in because of the trades they made with Nashville.
Right.
What do you remember about Peter Forsberg as a Flyer coming out of the lockout?
I remember being unbelievably excited for that. I think that's the big thing in my memory that sticks is I really, really liked those Avalanche teams.
Yeah.
They were my Western Conference team when I got into hockey because it was great. You obviously watched Flyers, you watched their games, then they're in the playoffs, you watch when they're in the playoffs. Often they were out of the playoffs quite quickly during that era. For a lot of first round exits in that era. But you want to keep watching hockey. And the Western Conference allowed for a way for one to continue to watch really, really good hockey, a little bit later. I was a teenager staying up late, downstairs, parents are in bed, and I'm still watching, the Western Conference final or whatever, playing at 11 p.m. or whatever in Colorado. I love Peter Forsberg. I like Joe Sakic. I liked Patrick Waugh. I liked Adam Foote. I love Peter Forsberg. Like, he was the guy on those Avs teams. He was so creative. He did super cool things with the puck. He scored a ton of points. Their jerseys were cool. Everything about the Avs during that era to me was cool.
And they weren't the Red Wings.
And
that was the other.
And they
part
weren't the Red Wings. Yeah. Exactly. When they announced they got Peter Forsberg, I lost my shit.
I remember exactly where I was when they made that announcement. I was making a pizza at Pizza Hut. Was working. I was listening. I think I had MMR on, and I don't remember who the DJ was, but they just announced like the Flyers just made this signing. It's Peter Forsberg. I just start. I'm the only one in the kitchen. I just start losing my mind. I'm like jumping up and down. The manager comes in. He's like, "What's going on?" I was like, just started, 16 years old probably, and I was like, the Flyers just got this guy. He's like, "Who?" It's like Peter Forsberg. No shit. I didn't know he was a hockey fan.
Yeah.
And then we like hugged.
Love
it was like we were so freaking excited for. And we're younger. Like, yeah, I guess he's an older guy, but like, who cares? This is Peter Forsberg. This dude, like, 2 cups. The thing I'll always remember about him in Colorado is it's not even winning the cups. It's the year he missed the entire regular season.
Right, and then came back
for the playoffs. Yeah. Goes to Game 7 of the Western Conference Final, but they lose. Doesn't even make the Stanley Cup Final. Leads the postseason in points.
Wild.
I was like, this dude is fucking clutch. This is exactly what we need. Coming out of the lockout, they're going for it. This is awesome. It kind of worked. My other awesome. He
was good when he played.
He was really good when he played, including this is Peter Forsberg, his time with the Flyers. This is the thing I'll always remember. It's from the only playoff series he played with us against Buffalo. Danny Briere and Chris Drury's Buffalo team, losing the first round to them. But this play by Peter Forsberg is the one I'll always think of when I think of him in orange and black.
The stick, Forsberg maneuvers through one and another. Forsberg up with it. Forsberg then checked again. Puck bouncing. Swatted back behind the net. There's Forsberg again. Puck is a magnet to his steel stick sometimes all the way around. Forsberg waiting, then dropping it back. Uncovered Desjardins. The blast. Score! Eric Desjardins scores for another case of Tasty Cakes. The Flyers on the board. It's 2-1.
He just went around the entire offensive zone twice.
Circled the zone twice. Gets checked. Keeps it.
He seems very tight in tonight's game.
This is the second lap now.
Prototypical, the best player in the world, saying, I'm going to keep the puck away and watch him draw everybody.
I think what's awesome about that play, and I say this as someone who did a ton of draft research over the past, from April through June, I was watching tons of tape and evaluating these guys. That's the kind of play where if you see a juniors guy doing it, it's a red flag. Because you say to yourself, there's no way he's going to be able to do that in the NHL. He leans too much on offensive creation styles that aren't going to translate. And it's hilarious that, there are some guys, the very rare few, where you can still do it.
Yeah,
you're just that good. You can do it at the NHL level still. And he's one of them. He was one of them.
They're going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's the... that's an I Dream of Druin highlight.
Yeah.
Look at Jonathan Druin doing all this shit. Yeah, man, no one can do that at the NHL except for, that 1%.
Yeah.
You have to be that freaking good to make it happen.
I remember one guy who pops into my head just because I watched a lot of tape of him. I liked him a lot. I like him as a prospect. Michael Hayes. He was a mid-first round pick. I believe he ended up in Montreal, if I remember correctly. But he did a lot of those plays in the USHL. And you're watching him, you're like, it's real cool. But also, like,
who can do this?
He's not going to be able to do that at the next level. He's going to need to learn how to create offense in a different way. A couple guys can. And Peter Forsberg is one of those guys. That was the thing with Ghost. Like, that was the reason why so many scouts were low on Ghost, because the way Ghost created offense in college, you watched him and you were just like, cool, but he's never going to be able to do this at the NHL level. And then in his rookie year, he comes up and he still could do it. Yeah, like, it was just, oh my God, he can still do the exact same shit he was doing at Union.
And it was like, I feel like he was a lot, and he scored a ton on the rush in the NHL as well. But like, I feel as if he did adapt a bit, and a lot more coming from the like toe pick, creating something from the point and distributing or shooting, rather than like, yeah, man, I'm just going to carry the puck end to end.
True.
Like,
true.
He didn't do that nearly as
Not
much.
as much, yeah.
And after the ACL, it was like, oh, he ain't that fast anymore.
Well, that was the thing.
He didn't have straight line speed.
It was with Ghost, and this is the disappointment. He's still in the NHL. He's still having a good career. But it was abundantly clear that he was, when he got to the NHL as a rookie, in retrospect, it's abundantly clear that he was right on the physical edge of not being able to do all those things.
Yeah.
But he just barely could still do all those things. And because he had such supreme confidence in his ability, he just still did them.
Yeah.
And the problem was that if his skating went from 100% of his peak to even 95%, then suddenly he couldn't do those things anymore because he didn't have much to give. And once he gave even a little bit, then he couldn't do the things he could do in his rookie year ever again. And he adapted. He became a solid NHL player, but he was never that guy again.
No. And like, back to Forsberg, like, this is, we show that highlight. That's after an injury-plagued 60-game season. A year before, it just really falls apart for him when it's like, yeah, man, can't get my foot in my skate. It's broken.
And he still was scoring above point per game.
He was still a point-a-game player at that. Like, when he couldn't skate, he had 1 foot. He was point-a-game player. Coming out of that lockout, and I always criticize their decision on the blue line, how they were going to handle it. Oh man, no more 2-line pass. Everything's going to be so fast. You know how we're going to defend this? The biggest defenseman we can find.
Hatcher and Ratchy, baby.
Hatcher, Ratchy. And they brought back Chris Therien. And
they brought back Chris Therien, right?
Derian Hatcher, man. I loved Hatcher with Dallas. Like, he was one of those guys.
He was nasty.
Like,
he was mean.
Mean son of a bitch.
Yeah.
A couple of years in his career, had some down ballot Norris love. I think his last year in Dallas, he was a finalist, finished third. But the Flyers bring him in coming out of the lockout. We can criticize that decision all we want. Here's something I had no idea. I have just no memory of, Charlie.
Okay.
Derian Hatcher was on the 07-08 team that goes to the East Final.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
He only played 44 regular season games that year, but he played in 15 of the 17 playoff games, and he was playing second pair minutes, it appears, with Randy Jones.
I totally memory hold that.
No memory of Derian Hatcher on that 08 team at all.
Yeah.
Like,
it's wild. And I wouldn't have predicted.
And whenever I see like those guys who only, it feels like, had a cup of coffee with the team in the like alumni games, like, oh, that's cool, they found a place, and like, Hatcher's a big name, but is he a Flyer?
No, he's a star.
Like, no, yes, absolutely, he's a star. Yeah. And it's like, well, you know what? He actually did spend more time here than I thought. I thought part of the reason they made all those moves on the blue line, it was like, well, Hatcher doesn't exist.
Yeah, Ratchy couldn't play anymore. And Hatcher did.
Yeah.
What do you know? That's funny.
And he played in those 08 playoffs.
So he was on the same team as Jason Smith.
Yeah.
Wow. Wild.
Jason Smith, it's funny, they used 7 defensemen in those 08 playoffs. Of those 7 defensemen, only Jason Smith played all 17 games. But he played like 16 minutes a game.
Yeah,
Hatcher was over 20.
Wow.
I had no idea. Like,
totally memory hold it.
Like, a playoffs that I think I remember pretty well. No. Derian Hatcher, absolutely no memory.
I still have mostly positive feelings toward Derian Hatcher.
I don't think he was very good for the Flyers, but it was a time period, like, it's not his fault they signed him. Like, and I think he did his best when they traded Forsberg and put the C on him to kind of keep things together. Yeah. It was a tumultuous time. Like, think about the captains they went through. Like, Primo has to retire basically right away. They try to put the C on Forsberg. He was like, kind of came out like, I don't want it. Like, I'm having my own issues here, man. Like, I'm hurt.
Right.
I'm just hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm playing, but I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really want to have to deal with wearing the C too. And then finally it ends up on Hatcher, and it's like,
also that season was just a dumpster fire from start to finish.
Yeah, it was horrible. He did his best to keep things together, but then they go out that next year and listen, they're right back in the Eastern Conference Final, and he was actually a part of it. No memory of it, but he did it. So that's remembering some guys from those teams, Forsberg and Hatcher. Yeah, just a couple of dudes who, man, you know what would have been real nice? Having them a few years earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been real nice. Another guy.
Flyers player acquisition 101.
Yeah, it would have been real nice. And that's the theme of today's show. Another guy, listen, not a failure, the signing. Jaromir Jagr signed with the Flyers July 2nd, 2001. He spent 3 seasons here, ages 32 to 34. And his numbers, not terrible. Averaged 72 games over those 3 years. Averaged 22 goals, 58 points over those 3 years. Pretty good. Yeah. Those are good, especially for the time period. Yeah. Pretty damn good numbers. But the thing is, from ages 21 to 31, he was over a point a game, and his like prorated average is like 87 points a season.
So here's what I will say about that. And I am no way, shape, or form denying that JR was not the same guy he was in Chicago and then in Arizona even. That said, he was playing under Ken Hitchcock.
The Hitchcock teams,
the Hitchcock
were like,
era Flyers suppressed everybody's scoring totals because they were so defensively oriented. It was basically a reaction to the Devils. Yeah. It was, oh, this is how we have to win? Okay, we'll hire Ken freaking Hitchcock.
Like, there's a reason Keith Primo scored more one year in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. No doubt it was a down year for him, but they were like, yeah, man, your whole job, shut down center.
Yeah.
Check people.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, like, absolutely, that was a thing. My issue with the Ronick signing is I remember being a kid, like, watching Sports Rise after this happened.
Sports Rise.
Yeah, man. I think it was, who was it at the time? Ron Burke, probably?
Was it? Might have been.
I think it was Ron Burke. And they're announcing, like, after the Ronick signing, it's like, yeah, the Capitals aren't happy. And it looked like they might file a tampering charge, I think, against the Flyers. They talked to Roenick too soon or something, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But I don't think anything ever came of that, because 10 days later, maybe 9 days later, the Capitals get Jagr. And while Roenick was good, I don't know, I think I'd rather have Jagr.
Yeah, one of the best players of all time.
And, you know, and we eventually get him. Yeah. But
what, 10 years later?
10 years later. But
the Flyers do.
The Roenick signing at the time, listen, it's July of 2001. This is another one I remember specifically. Coming home from the Deptford Mall in the summer with my mom, listening to WIP. They announced the Flyers got Jaromir Jagr. Was fucking buzzing on the way home. See Frankie, grew up across the street from him in his driveway. As soon as we parked the car, I just go running out to Frank. I'm like, we got Roenick! And we are jumping up and down in his driveway because we're winning the cup. Because like,
obviously,
like, this is, I didn't have, did I have the internet in 2001? I don't think so. Like, Roenick to me is just like a video game character who's awesome. Mm-hmm. Like a guy whose highlights I see on SportsCenter. Like, that's who I know Roenick as. And like, he's awesome in NHL 94. I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
true.
I didn't realize at the time, it's like, yeah, you're getting 32-year-old Roenick. And he was still good, but in my mind, we were getting a 100-point superstar.
Fair.
And that's not quite who he was.
I remember me and my mom both really, really liked Jaromir Jagr when he was a Flyer. That he was funny and he was flashy.
Great quote.
He was a great quote. It was just, I don't know. He was an easy guy to like when he was on the team. He wasn't. He had that like self-deprecating side of him, not quite to the degree of Jonesy, but it was there.
Yeah,
like he'd be willing to like take it. You know, he'd be willing to take some shots at him and just laugh it off. But he was a competitor. I liked Ronick.
Some of these post-Lindros teams, I bet, were really fun to hang out with.
Probably.
Like this 01 to 04 era. I bet those teams were a lot more fun than, because we were kids. And it wasn't like, TMZ style, like Crossing Broad or anything.
Yeah,
so we didn't
that
know.
was a few years away.
Didn't quite know about that yet. But like Ronick was, and listen, we get an all-time great moment with the overtime winner against the Leafs.
Yeah.
And he's on that 04 team. We'll always love that team. It'll be one of my favorite teams until they win a freaking cup.
Agreed.
If and when. But I'll always have a special place. But the Ronick is... we were asking this last week about the multi-stint Flyers. He spent more time elsewhere. He had more success elsewhere. Didn't win a cup anywhere, but I think he's more synonymous with Chicago, maybe even Phoenix, just because, I don't know, that jersey's always in my head. Some late career time with San Jose. Is he a Flyer?
JR?
I feel like he is.
Do you? Because I don't. I think he is to a degree, but... And maybe this is partially a him thing. He hasn't really stayed around.
Yeah,
I think if he could have made himself a Flyer if he would have if he popped in for alumni game but
he was at the 12 alumni game.
He just never really stuck around. Like Jonesy wasn't on the team that long.
Yeah, no, he's only here 2 years.
Yeah, he really wasn't. But he's a Flyer as much because of the shit he did after his career was done as the shit he did during his career.
And when you think about this town, man, turns out national talent. I mean,
to be
in
sure.
hockey alone, but for all sports, look around. Whether they're Temple grads or guys who started their career in this town.
Even we're talking about media. Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
Sal Paolantonio.
It's not just hot. It's
Mike Mayock.
Journalists and former athletes like Ronick, who seemed so destined for a post-career media career.
I would have...
if he had stuck around, maybe.
Yeah, and obviously he has some controversial statements or whatever, but I would have expected to see him kind of in the role that Hartnell is in right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not as if it's and then that's it. How many of these dudes have we seen then go national? Yeah. Boucher now, Jonesy.
Well, Bouch is back kind of,
lots
but he's also national.
Bouch is now in the Jonesy role where it's he's doing both.
Right.
And we've seen plenty of guys go from here to elsewhere. Sure. It seems like it was a path for Ronick, but he was just one, he spent so much post-Flyers time still playing.
True.
He was in the league a while after he left the Flyers.
To be sure.
And then it's he never really came back, It's odd, but I still think of him he just seemed like a Flyer. Signing him made sense. As much as I would have,
I would agree with that.
As much as I would have preferred Jagr at the time, and Jagr absolutely ingratiated himself in his time here. In July of 2001, poll 100 Flyers fans. Roenick wins the poll over Jagr.
Maybe. Yeah, people hated Jagr.
Yeah, they hated him. The long hair, dude looks like a lady.
Yeah, people hated Jagr. He was not popular.
What we liked as a hockey player, at least in our minds.
True.
Then it was what really works? Having the best players. That would be nice.
That would have been an incredible. It already was when he came to Philly, especially because the Penguins thought they were going to get him back. That was the whole thing, was that the Penguins were convinced that because he was coming back from overseas and he was going to rejoin the Penguins. Took another 10 years for the Penguins to even forgive him for spurning him. It was a whole thing. But it was a heel turn then because he came to Philly and he was a Penguin. Imagine the degree of a heel turn it would have been if he would have became a Flyer right after the Penguins.
That gets us to
would
Jagr.
have been wild.
Jagr got the guy they got July 1st, 2011. But 10 years prior, July 11th, 2001, he's traded by Pittsburgh for some guys to Washington. And this is the reason, really, I included JR. It's because, maybe we could have gotten, this was a trade, and it's pre-cap. You could have had both, too.
That's true.
I wonder if Pittsburgh would have been willing to do that, considering, here, But it's not like Washington's on the West Coast.
Yeah.
They're right there too.
That's true.
You have to play them still.
It's true.
So I don't know, but I always just think of Roenick as a missed opportunity to have got Jagr. But in 2011, they do it. Jagr left the NHL after 07-08, and came back and signed with the Flyers in 2011. You know, he played he was 39. And then he played 6 seasons after only the 1 year with the Flyers. Yeah. And that first year, like, he's in his 40s after that. He had a nice year. 19 goals, 54 points, first year back after 3 years overseas. Nice. You know, in 13-14, he put up 24 goals, 67 points. In 15-16 with Florida, 27 goals, 66 points. The biggest mistake they made with Jagr was letting him go.
They blew that
offseason
so bad. There was the makings of, if not a consistent title contender, at least a
watchable team.
A contender. Yeah. Like a team that is maybe in the second tier.
Yeah.
And if everything breaks their way, maybe they can win a cup. If they would have had a better offseason, instead, they had the offseason from health.
Everyone remembers Shea Weber, but we did the whole Shea Weber thing.
They lost Carl. In retrospect, losing Carl wasn't that big of a deal, but they still lost a quality top four defenseman. Yeah.
Like, you were trying to, everyone remembers the Weber thing. We did that a couple of weeks or I don't remember. We looked back on that offer sheet at some point this offseason. They also were pursuing Suter and Parisi.
Sure were.
Like, only after that did they tender Shea Weber.
Yeah.
Like,
so supposedly their offers were bigger than the ones both of them signed with Minnesota.
And that might have been the biggest mistake. They were always fucking going to Minnesota. They were from there. Yeah. They wanted to go home. It was a big joke. But that's how it went down. They lose out on them, then they go after Weber. And in all this downtime where they have no idea what sort of cap certainty they're going to have.
Yeah.
Jagr and Carl go, I'm not waiting.
Yeah.
Like, I need...
Jagr in particular, I think they expected to keep Jagr. And then Jagr was like, sorry, bye.
And when we talk about...
Because Drew loved playing with Jagr. I mean, how could he not? But seriously.
He's a fucking legend. And two, when we talk about them never building a team around Claude Giroux, I'm going to show you a table. A little statistical profile here. Now, granted, it's only one season, but from 2011-12 through 2018-19, Claude Giroux scored 612 points in 612 games.
Okay.
By points per game over that span.
Okay.
Only Jake Voracek was better than that 1 year of Jaromir Jagr.
That's wild.
We're talking about 39-year-old Jagr here, who is third, and it's 1 year. I get it. We're looking at guys who had, and like Peter Strzok is on here. He played 3 games.
Peter Strzok.
Yeah, maybe I should have set this at 4-game minimum or whatever. But like, look at this list. Nobody except Jake Voracek was able to beat a 39. I know he's a legend and everything, and he was good for a while even after this, but. A 39-year-old guy, after 3 years not playing in the NHL, is the, at worst, third best line mate. Second best line mate that Claude Giroux ever fucking had during his prime.
I guess, I mean, you could definitely say, I would say third, because the stretches from 2011 through 2019, those final couple years, Sean Couturier was real good. But
that last year, 18-19, I believe, is
17-18 was the first big Couturier.
Yeah, there's 2 big Couturier years in there.
Yeah,
before the whole cup.
But for most of that stretch, he didn't play with Giroux.
Yes,
because they were both centers.
Yeah,
he didn't start playing with Giroux until they moved Giroux to wing in 2017.
Exactly, and at that point, it was the joke like, oh, the goal scoring winger Claude Giroux always needed was Claude Giroux.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'll put Sean Couturier honestly probably the. Would you put him?
I would say
ahead of Jake.
I would say prime Jake better than prime Coots, at least in terms of offense.
Were so good.
Yes, I would put it Voracek, 2 years of Couturier at his best. Jagr.
I wonder, like, Couturier did so much of the heavy lifting for Giroux.
Yeah, you can make a case.
And I wonder if like Voracek separate from Giroux, like Jake was great. I love Jake. I don't know if he has the career he has separate from G.
Maybe.
Sean Couturier, I think, because this is the end of the prime. Like, they moved G out of center and put Couturier there.
Right.
I might put Couturier ahead of Jake.
Okay. I can respect that.
It's a real tough.
Yeah.
And it's a short period
Jake
of time.
Was a significantly more talented offensive player.
Yes, absolutely.
Couturier probably was the better all-around player.
Yeah. It's so regardless, third best player. Let's call it third best player.
That's still insane.
Third best player Giroux ever played with is a 39-year-old coming off of 3 years out of the league.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. When we say Giroux never had any help, that's what we're talking about. That
is what we mean.
And you're like, this is a list of players that they got way too late. He's one of the best teammates he ever had.
You know what, the Jagr stuff too, and this is me changing gears a little bit. The Jagr stuff,
just
like
remember
with
some dudes day.
With him staying good until his mid-40s. What always pops in my head when I recognize that is Hall of Fame players age really, really well generally. Yeah. And then I just do the what if of Pronger. Because I really, really think that had he not gotten hurt, he would have stayed a legitimately good, at least top 4 quality defenseman for another 4 or 5 years.
I mean, even the year he got hurt, because Pronger is on this list. He's very much on this list. Guys, they got too late. And listen, he had one healthy season with the team. They went to the Stanley Cup final.
And that's what he did. He did it with the Ducks. He did it with the Oilers. It's just what Pronger did.
Those St. Louis teams, he was a beast in the playoffs for them, won the heart. Everyone knows how much I love Chris Pronger. Edmonton, 1 year there, Stanley Cup final. Anaheim wins a cup there. Yeah. 1 year here healthy, goes to the Stanley Cup final. He had 12 points in 13 games the year he got hurt. Yeah. That's real good.
I think he would have played and been good until he was like 44, 45. I really believe that.
Look at Zdeno Chara.
You can never convince me otherwise.
The most obvious, I think, comparison is Chara, who was, okay, maybe he's not Norris level guy at the end. He's still real fucking good though. Yeah. That's what Chara, I think, or that's what Pronger, I think, would have been. But goddamn, just imagine getting him in 2000. That would have been so nice. Just imagine getting him in, coming out of the lockout in 05-06 when they're reshaping their whole blue line. Hey, you want a big defenseman? Here's one who can actually play.
I just think with Pronger, the thing with him is that he wasn't, by the time the Flyers got him, he wasn't a great skater anymore. He was still fine, but he wasn't a great skater anymore. He could certainly get beat to the outside. But as much as you remember Chris Pronger for the toughness, how mean he was, the comments, all those things, him kind of being like the jester of the, dealing with media, his battles with Panaccio, he was an incredibly smart hockey player. Yeah. He was so smart. And that's not going to go away. He gets hurt. He's 37. Maybe I'm overstating it to say he could have played until he was 45, but I think he would have been perfectly fine until he was 41 or 42.
Yeah. And considering what happened to the defense in the ensuing seasons, he's a top 4 defender for them no matter what. Yeah. Think about what they had to do, and then you deal with Tiemannin's decline. Coburn gets, all these guys would have benefited so much from playing with or behind Pronger. Maybe you can keep the gang together a little longer on that blue. I don't know. It's just, it's a bummer. And to think he's fucking old when they get him. Yeah. If he could have just stayed around, even though they got him too late, quote unquote, he's maybe the biggest success story out of this.
No, and part of the risk, in fairness, because you can't push this aside. Part of the risk of trading for an older player is the injury risk.
Older players get hurt.
They get hurt more. That's just the way it is. So that played into it. But I still think, even knowing the outcome, I still think it was the right move to make that trade, and I think it was the right move to sign him to that contract because I think it was a worthwhile risk. And if we go full butterfly effect, if you change one thing, one coaching decision, one, guy makes a different decision on the ice, maybe he doesn't get hurt. And if he doesn't get that eye injury and then doesn't come back from that too quick and get himself hurt again and then have to basically not be able to be in well-lit rooms for 4 years, I think he stays good for basically that entire contract they signed him to. I do. I think that was a good risk to take because it tends to be smart to take risks on Hall of Fame level talent aging well. We can debate up and down whether Claude Giroux is a lock Hall of Fame or a borderline Hall of Famer. He is at least going to be in the conversation. And I got news for you. He's aging real well.
He looks as if, he's going to be playing a while.
Yeah.
He's...
Joe Thornton aged real well. You know why? Because he's a lock Hall of Famer. They age well.
Yeah, Giroux, unless there's a major injury, he's going to hang it up he's going to have to hang it up when he's just like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, he seems as if he's going to be able to play a while.
I think he'll play at the very least into his late 30s. I could see him playing when he's 40. I could see it.
I want to get
still good now. He's still a top 6 forward now.
I want to get to one more because I think it might be the most mad I've ever been.
Okay.
About a Flyers acquisition.
Okay.
That offseason coming after the 13 disaster, that's the 48-game season. Flyers missed the playoffs. They're bad. We had so much hope after 2012. Playoffs didn't end the way we wanted to in 2012, but a lot of hope. And 13 is a disaster. It's the short season, all that.
Yeah.
So we're restocking. Vinny Lecavalier and Ray Emery.
Vinny was the real bad
Vinny,
one.
Ray Emery, that was just
he beat up Braden Holtby.
After, and it was fun. And coming out, it was just the most predictable thing. He just played behind Chicago, and it was a short season in which he was the backup. Yeah, I bet you those results are he's going to repeat those.
Yeah.
The Vinny Lecavalier one, I wrote an article, if the Flyers, I don't even remember who for, maybe Sons of Penn at the time, maybe it was before we started that, Orange Update, whatever it was. And I was just, if they do this, it's stupid. He's getting bought out for a reason.
Yeah.
And he's not getting any younger after this buyout. This is the exact thing that we used to do that never worked, that we're trying again, and it was
Except now there's a salary cap.
And now there's a cap.
So you actually have consequences if you screw up.
Now it's not just, you're overpaying an old guy. Okay, we'll just get someone else to do what we thought he could do. No, these are guaranteed contracts that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
And it was this was the height of my disgust with the Flyers front office when they went out and got Vinny Lecavalier, because it was so obviously a bad move.
At the time, I was ambivalent. I was like, oh, cool, Vinny Lecavalier. He probably still has something left in the tank, right? And he obviously didn't. But the giveaway in retrospect, the sign we all should have seen, and to your credit, you apparently saw it, and you hinted at it. You shouldn't understate to the degree to which Vinny Lecavalier was a Tampa Bay Lightning legend. He was a franchise legend. They had won one cup, and he was like the guy, him and Brad Richards. If that team is buying him out, you're buying out a franchise legend. He must have looked terrible. And I didn't watch Tampa Bay games the year before they bought him out. Why would I? It wasn't my focus. I was focused on the Flyers. But for a team to use a compliance buyout on a franchise legend who is going in their team Hall of Fame the minute he retires, probably going back to, you're thinking he's going to go back and he's going to be a commentator when he retires or something. And to buy him out, it wasn't just that it was a bad contract. It was that they knew he was cooked, because otherwise, why else would you buy out a franchise legend? You
figure out a way if it's worth it.
Yes.
It was so not.
Yeah.
Why would it be worth it for us? But that's what F Around Friday was about today. And you know what I do at this time every day. It's thank our diehards. We love our diehards here at PHLY. Sure, and got a little announcement for our diehards. This is pretty cool.
Okay.
We got a whole bunch of tickets to the Rookie Series game against the Rangers, Flyers-Rangers, Friday night, the September 13th game, the Friday game up in Allentown at the PPL Center.
We're thinking probably going to be the first time Matvei Michkov plays a competitive game with a Flyers jersey.
It really better be.
It really better be.
We went all in on the Friday game. We have a whole bunch of tickets. How are we going to decide who gets to go? We're going to have a diehard giveaway. You got to be a diehard to be eligible. Honestly, I wish I had more details for you, but I haven't come up with them yet.
Okay.
So those will come on Monday. But if you're not a diehard and you want to be eligible for this, all you got to do is go to allphly.com, sign up to be a diehard, and guess what? You get all the other benefits too. And this added one now, you're eligible to win the tickets for the Rookie Series game at the PPL Center on Friday, September 13th.
Just a quick hour drive up the...
just head up there. We're going to try to find a bar for a little meetup with everybody before the game.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Then go watch the game, and hopefully it's Mishkov's first time wearing a Flyers jersey up against the Rangers. It's going to be great. That's it. We're going to be giving these tickets away to diehards. That's all I know right now. I'll have more details for you on Monday. And speaking of next week, We also have the results to the Tuesday Reviews Day poll for next week, which I absolutely rigged for the Mighty Ducks.
All right,
and we will be watching the Mighty Ducks for Tuesday Reviews Day next week. Listen, I'm trying to find movies that are streaming free after like 3 of the last 4 that we watched weren't. Ducks is up on... all the Mighty Ducks movies are up on Disney+. Goon 2, Last of the Enforcers is on Netflix. I allowed for write-ins in case that was a possibility. Guess what? You're not going to win a write-in. That was never going to happen. Yeah. So the Mighty Ducks won, and we'll be watching that next week for Tuesday Reviews Day. Listen, I didn't want to watch, but it's fun. Who doesn't love the Ducks? You know.
It was a great movie when I was a kid. I still have positive feelings towards that movie.
That'll be Tuesday Reviews Day.
We got a super chat.
And we have to close with super chats. We have one today from our buddy K-Red. Is training camp still scheduled to take place at the Flyers Training Center? With Mishkov hitting the ice, I have to imagine many, many fans will be turned away. Parking lot is going to be wild. We've been talking about this for months. Like, there's going to be like cops directing traffic and Voorhees. This is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's...
Last conversation I had with the Flyers is that they're still planning to have it in Voorhees. So, in all honesty, that might be... like, there's something about something being packed.
Lehigh vibes from when like T.O. comes to the Eagles.
I understand why fans would be like, they don't want to have it at the Farg, we all can come. But the thing is that there's no way that there are enough super crazy Flyers fans for the Farg to be packed, whereas it'll be very easy for the Voorhees Training Center to be like turning people away, and that makes them look real, real good.
I could see maybe doing a day. Maybe just do one day there. But at the same time, like, do you want to create like the hype and expectation? Like, hey, listen, we know why they're doing this. It ain't because everyone is so happy about what the Flyers are. It's one guy.
Yeah.
It's Mishkov.
Yeah.
Do we maybe want to do that? But great reason to go to that rookie game. Great reason to go to that rookie series. And if you want to go for free, sign to be a diehard. You're eligible to win the tickets. I'll come up with the terms and conditions for winning the tickets by Monday. But all you got to know right now is you got to be a diehard to win them. All right, that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers Day. We don't have anything else, right, Bren? That's it. Okay,
we're good.
That's all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers Day. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube. Set those reminder bells so you never miss a live show. Watch us on Roku, man. That's pretty cool, the Roku channel. There's a video out there of me explaining how to find us. But if you have a Roku app or if you have a Roku device of any kind, you can find us every day there live. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast as well. All you got to do is search PHLY Flyers. That's it for us. My name's Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Till next week, you stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.